Hey everyone, I'm Jessica DeRuzza, and this is my YouTube channel, Trust Psyche, where we do everything on archetypal astrology and depth psychology. I'm a licensed psychotherapist in private practice that also incorporates or integrates astrology into all of my work, whether that's with my therapy clients or my astrology students or with other practitioners of astrology and psychotherapy who are bringing the two fields or disciplines together. Currently, right now in the sky for everyone in the world transits, there's a Jupiter Pluto opposition. And I wanted to share some of my thoughts on this particular alignment. What I'm about to share is able to be applied to any Jupiter Pluto aspect, um, particularly the hard or dynamic aspects, but really to all five of the major aspects. Lately, I've been thinking a lot about the philosophy of astrology and psychology, and how, when we do this work of interpretation, that so much of what we're learning to do is how to share and convey the information in a way that lands for the other person, that helps support positive change or to encourage and empower someone to have more self-awareness and understanding that leads to some type of benefit in one's life, usually through embodied action. So all of what I'm about to share on Jupiter Pluto is in service of that. So I'm going to tune in here and share what comes through. Jupiter, as the largest planet in our solar system, amplifies and magnifies whatever it touches. So when it is in opposition to Pluto, it amplifies and magnifies our animal nature. And what I mean by that is everything from our instincts and instinctual knowing, our animal sense of things, but also of our animal bodies. So that more primal, primitive part of every human being. Of course, we are mammals, but so much of what Pluto represents is how we experience that mammalian quality of uh, being primal and being instinctual that very much connects as well to our sexuality, our sex, our sexuality, our sex drive. So under Jupiter Pluto, we tend to have a magnification of everything from our instincts to our sexual drive. It tends to be a time period where we can feel more sexual or the urge to have sex or to desire to have sex or to make love. But also, it very much can enhance all of our drives, our instinctual drives that very much relates not only to our vitality, that force of nature, coursing and moving through all of life, but also to our ambition. So Pluto and Jupiter together is a very ambitious energy, and it wants to um, go after what it wants at all costs, almost in at times a way that can feel really intense or extreme, the drive that's there, because Pluto is this force of nature and Jupiter is magnifying that whole process. But Pluto also relates to the unconscious. So Jupiter Pluto is a time where unconscious material tends to come up from underground or from the unconscious and come out in a really big way. And that can be anything from the aspects of Pluto of relating to that which is repressed. Pluto relates to our id, but it also relates to our secrets. And so if there are secrets under Jupiter, Pluto, those tend to get amplified and get bigger and at times made larger than life and come out onto the world stage. You're seeing some of that currently in the media where things that were are trying to be hidden or covered up are coming forward. the secrets that people keep from themselves and one another. And so there can be something very scandalous about when these two planets come together, or like scandals breaking out. But Pluto is the taboo. And of course, it's the taboo and our secrets. And that includes very much within the whole process of life that relates to our sex and sexuality. And so it can be anything from sexual secrets and affairs to sexual orientations, including people's kinks, or ways in which people may have misused or abused their power. Pluto is the archetype of power, and Jupiter elevates whatever it touches. And so, in that kind of rising up, buoyant quality that Jupiter brings, it can kind of like a buoy hone in on the darker aspects of life and buoy it up for it to become visible and seen, but usually in a way that's really big and so therefore confronting. Also, Jupiter Pluto is a time where we tend to encounter more shadow material, whether that's our own shadow material or the shadow material of the other people in our lives. But Jupiter Pluto also very much is the geopolitical part of life. And so there's a tendency for the world stage, and particularly through politics, to become massive and titanic. And so there tends to be really big news that comes out under Jupiter Pluto on the world stage, particularly anything that has been hidden, secretive, or any way kept hidden from the public eye. And so the tendency is the bigger the news or the bigger the scandal, the more it kind of comes out in this explosive way. We think of Pluto as the volcano exploding. Jupiter is like the really big volcano exploding, or that really huge eruption that causes a lot of potentially destruction before recreation. So there's an amplification of everything from the scatological to the death rebirth process or the death rebirth mystery, and anything that is like wanting some sense of catharsis, that's wanting to come out from our animal nature and have that catharsis to it. It tends to come out during this time. So things spill over and spill out when Jupiter opposes Pluto, particularly things that have been repressed. I think something that's helpful when you think about this alignment is, Jupiter is ritual, and it's the way that we honor something, or the way that we celebrate something, the way we bring it into our customs, even on a societal level and in our cultures. You have things like the World Cup going on right now, which is this huge Jupiter Pluto display of incredible talent and power and the world coming together. And of course, all of the politics that are going in to this moment as one example of, wow, Jupiter Pluto is when the whole world comes together in this world stage of this high drama. Jupiter Pluto is definitely that energy of high drama and high theatrics, high theater, and getting, everything from the tragedy and the comedy all mixed in, whether that's from the horrific earthquakes in Venezuela to so much of the championing of the World Cup, but also a lot of the deaths and losses that have happened during this time connected to the World Cup. That all, for me, very much is the Jupiter Pluto energy. So when you think about that dimension of it and you tune into it, what you tend to notice in the high drama is the stakes just seeming to get higher and higher into this mounting pressure. And there can be a lot of pressure that comes with this energy that wants to come out and be expressed or spill over. And I think something that's helpful to think about at this time is how do you engage in your own rituals around Pluto? Because one way or another, it needs to come out. So for some people, that's prioritizing having sex. For other people, that's prioritizing having some kind of cathartic experience, like uh, playing sports, going dancing. It's how do you honor and make reverence for the ways in which you're an animal? Um, there's a quality in it that wants to feast or even gorge oneself. There's a real appetite and drive for life. So there's a thirst and there's a hunger. And one way or another, like we need to get that sense of being satiated, that the Jupiter Pluto very much is questing for. It's very ravenous is a good word for it. And so it's like, what are the ways in which you can, in the most healthy ways possible, be ravenous and get those animal needs met, in a way that is life enhancing and life fulfilling, right? That's safe and consensual, but that's ritualized in some way. So for some people, that's literally going to the World Cup. That's a sanctioned way for people to let out their beasts, their animal nature, in a societally sanctioned way, where you can be primal and connect with other humans and other strangers, in this way through the chanting and the singing and the dancing and the dressing up. I think of Jupiter, Pluto, and I think of things like Carnival or Burning Man. These are sanctioned places and spaces where you get to express in that primal nature that we all carry, and we can let out more of our inner beast and who we are as sexual beings, and a celebration of power of the individual and power of society as well. You also see that very much in relating to the Jupiter piece of society and civilization, and Pluto being power is like, how do we celebrate our humanity, but how do we celebrate the accomplishments of our different cultures? And you also see this experience of the melting pot coming together at the World Cup, of all these different countries being together and all of their different customs and rituals and sharing it with each other in the games. It very much has this way of reminding us of how important it is to be connected to our culture and to have the opportunity to experience other cultures and to get to share that in our humanity. I think Jupiter Pluto definitely is looking for that kind of cross-cultural pollination that happens when people come together from all different kinds of backgrounds. There's a powerful alchemy that takes place that can shift our attitude and perspectives, because Pluto deepens and intensifies whatever it touches, and Jupiter is our positive attitude in part. It's our beliefs. It's the way that we very much are influenced by both the worldview and the attitude that we bring, including our faith. And so it's a time of experiencing other people's religions and other people's faiths, and both seeing our common humanity and the ways in which we're different from one another, and that being something to be excited about. But very much too, there can be this transformation and evolution of our beliefs during this time, and also the transformation and evolution of our attitude. It can be a time where we can align with feeling more positive and optimistic or hopeful about things, and more vital overall. And so again, it's like, what are the ways in which you can share in your humanity with other humans, your faith and cultural beliefs, but in some way that is cathartic, that offers that release that we need, that we all need in some way or another. I know for me, if I'm irritable, if I'm cranky, if I feel pent up or restless, that's a pretty good sign to me that I need to do something plutonic in order to get out of my rational brain and the thinking function and all of the productivity and doing that so much is required to be a human in the world today. And, where am I getting that physiological release? And for me, so much of that happens through live music and dancing. And so then I know, okay, I need to go have that where I can really shake it out on the dance floor, quite literally. Or I know I need to prioritize lovemaking. I need to prioritize going very deep and having a deep intimacy of some kind with my husband. Um, so much of Jupiter Pluto wants big, powerful experiences. And again, just to bring it back to the World Cup, is like you're really seeing that happening. I remember at the end of one of the last games where England played and just seeing everyone sing together, I just started to cry. And that emotional release of catharsis that I got from witnessing these people in their ritual was so moving for me, that it did something for me. This is what Jupiter Pluto is looking for, that kind of release that's so necessary for us as human beings to stay in a state of our nervous system that's more regulated, less hypervigilant, less in fight, flight, fawn, or freeze, right? The things that happen when we become dysregulated for whatever the reasons may be. Jupiter Pluto is this invitation into having big releases, so that we can feel a greater sense of being centered within our own selves. And usually, things that can come up during this time is the awareness of the need for that pent up energy to be released, just like that happens when the tectonic shifts, the plates under the Earth's surface happen. They're trying to relieve pressure. That's why we get earthquakes, and they do cause real destruction, as we know, and they're a necessary geological event that the Earth is required to go through in order to release the pressure. I think Jupiter Pluto reminds us of that in our individual and personal lives. The same with the volcano erupting, it's doing so because it needs to release that pressure. Well, the same is true for all of our psyches. We all get pressurized and need to find some, as healthy as possible ways to release that, but that still honors the irrational, particularly the instinctual, which is what is required with Pluto and its connection with nature and biology, and also its connection with sex, death, and birth. Births tend to be more big and pronounced during this time, for people who are going through that process. Deaths tend to be bigger and more political. You can see that going on right now with the people that are dying, that are famous, which Jupiter Pluto very much relates to fame and wealth. These announcements are surprising and sometimes shocking, and secrets are coming out. That very much relates to the Jupiter Pluto as well. I think the encounter with shadow material and the unconscious is very real, and demanding. It's very big energy, so it tends to require a lot of energy to handle what's coming up. But at the same time, it can also give us more vitality, where we can feel more capable of doing things or having more energy than usual, or more drive or more ambition than we have as of late. So it can be a very empowering energy to go do big things or bigger things that we're wanting to do right now. All right, so that's some of my take on the Jupiter Pluto, and just also thinking about this piece I brought in earlier about philosophy. Jupiter relates to philosophy, and Pluto relates to psychology, especially depth psychology. And Jupiter's in a sextile to Uranus, which is in a trine to Pluto right now. And so just thinking about this philosophy of astrology and psychology, and the ways in which I believe that these two fields or disciplines really need one another for their mutual benefit and enhancement. And there's really incredible work going on in the world right now from a lot of folks here who are probably watching this, doing this type of work. And I just want to continue to encourage everyone in whatever way you're called to participate in this of astrology and psychology coming more together, that it's just something I'm very passionate about, I'm very excited about, and that I devote a lot of my life force and energy and time to, because it brings me a lot of joy. And that's the part of Jupiter that I think is really important to tune into, is like, what are these places of deep joy in our lives? Um, you know, unbridled joy, very impassioned energy. Jupiter, Pluto is a very passionate energy. And so this is just my friendly reminder and encouragement for whatever your deep joy is or your passions and drives are, to allow those to come through right now and to make time for them in whatever way you can, because it's special to do that under the Jupiter Pluto energy. You get a greater depth and richness from engaging in those things at this time. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for being here. I'd love to hear from you. If you feel like leaving a comment saying, hey, liking this video, sharing it, and of course, subscribing to the Trust Psyche YouTube channel. It's always such a pleasure to be here with you. And I look forward to being on here again. Okay, bye for now.